Sup, boys? So today I want to talk about something that's a little bit more of a serious conversation, but I do believe really deserves a discussion and a video, which is the way that streamers cultivate and create their own communities, and also how toxicity manifests inside of those communities, and how much of that manifestation is the streamer's responsibility or the streamer's fault versus the community's fault, and versus just the outcome of them existing online and creating content in different online spaces like Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, etc. Now, I want to talk a lot about my own personal experiences with this and share them so other people can kind of learn from them, and also tell you guys what's worked for me and what hasn't worked for me. I've had a lot of experience with this. I've streamed for over 3 years now, and I'd like to really share my thoughts on this subject. Now, the reason I'm making the video is because I think it's a very, very important topic, because it doesn't just concern streamers. It concerns the entire audience, the viewers, just anybody, even who's a casual viewer, because it affects everybody's experience inside of each different stream and inside of these online communities. And it really gives the streamer the opportunity to build something that's truly bigger than themselves. And so the first thing that I want to talk to you all about today is tone. Now, tone is something that's it's very amorphous. It's very gray. Like, what do you really mean by tone? And I'll explain it like this. Imagine you're having a conversation with somebody, and then you're disagreeing with them. You're having an argument, and then suddenly that person starts yelling at you. The emotional elevation just went up from 1 to 99, or 1 to 10. And immediately, maybe you start yelling back at them. And the fact is that you don't want to have an arms race like that. You don't want to try to force your opinion on your audience. And sometimes people disagree with you, and sometimes that's okay. It's all right to have people disagree with you. I think a good example of this for me personally is whenever I was talking about the Alinity thing a few days ago, and I was expressing an opinion that was not the mainstream opinion. And I expressed the way that I felt. I gave my rationalization and my reasons, and I articulated it relatively well. And some people at the end of it still disagreed with me, but there are many people that just listened to what I said, and maybe they agreed or maybe they didn't, but we had a positive, productive conversation. And I was really happy about that. And I realized afterwards, why was that? Well, it's because the way that I approached the conversation was to have a conversation. It wasn't to have a competition. It wasn't to try to win. It wasn't to try to force my opinion down their throats. It was just me telling people how I feel about something. And I think doing that is much more genuine and real also, beyond just being something that's more agreeable. And I think that more streamers that want to take that approach, and if they have somebody who disagrees with them, maybe listen to what they say and agree or disagree afterwards, rather than just immediately banning the person or something like that. Now, obviously, I'll say this probably a couple of times in this video, a streamer should never be made to feel, and I'm going to be talking mostly from a streamer perspective. This is like the same as YouTube or Twitch or anything like that, right? Any social media. A person should never be made to feel like they should be okay with something that they're not. So if something makes you uncomfortable, you should never have to deal with that. If somebody says, if you don't like being called fat and you're fat, or maybe you're not fat and you still don't like being called fat because you're anorexic, and people are calling you fat, fuck that. Like, if somebody's saying, oh, it's just banter, like, yeah, sure, but I don't like it, so fuck off, right? You should be never made to feel like you should accept things that you're not comfortable with. And that's something that I've always believed, and I believe that everybody should be able to cultivate an experience in a space that they are comfortable with. But I do also believe that the tone that you take whenever you're cultivating that space is something that really defines whether a lot of people will support it or not. And also, this dovetails into the difference between banter and, just like friendly conversation that might be a little bit of, a little jab here and there, but it's not done with ill intent. And then also on the other side, people who do have genuine malintent and bad intentions. And I believe the difference between a bad and a good content creator, and especially between a good and a great content creator, is the ability to find the line between those two things and be able to know and appreciate the banter, while at the same time drown out and get rid of the actual true malice and negativity. And I think that a lot of times it's very hard to tell which is which, and many times, especially whenever a streamer is in kind of a bad mental state, many more times they'll interpret something that could be banter as genuine malice. And I think this is just part of the human condition. It's just how it is. And it's just an outcome of being online, because sometimes people have bad days. And, like, everybody's had a bad day where something that would usually not piss you off does piss you off. And, you can't just be a streamer and turn off all of your emotions and just be a robot. And I think if you could do that, who would want to watch it? I think it's a personal endeavor, and it's a very personal, interpersonal endeavor. And so, if you're able to figure out where that line is and differentiate the two, and cultivate a community that respects and understands how you feel, and builds memes and builds jokes and everything like that in a respectful and positive way, even if they might not be respectful or positive, you're going to have a great community. And I think an example of this is if you are there with, and this is going to be my second point, where memes are kind of growing out of memes grow out of the creator's control. Memes grow out of the streamer's control. And a streamer finds themselves a stranger in their own community. And I've seen this happen a lot recently. And just to wrap up the whole tone thing, if you disagree with somebody on stream, try to listen to why. Try to hear where their perspective is. Explain your perspective. And sometimes you can agree to disagree, and that's okay. Also, the second thing I want to talk about is memes, right? This is the second topic, the second part of it, I guess. The reason for this is you see some memes and some people that create memes, and then what the ironic thing about this is that it is a negative thing that happens because people taking memes and the jokes inside of a stream, inside jokes, and they take them literally, and usually it comes out of a positive. Which the positive is that, oh, this person's getting a lot of new viewers, or attracting a lot of new people to their stream. But the problem is that those new people that are coming into the stream are coming in too quickly, and they're not being productively assimilated into the community in the way that they should. So what ends up happening is you have, it's like you and your 4 friends, right? And you've got the one dude, maybe you're the one dude, and you meet up with your boys, and they're like, hey, were you combing your last 3 hairs? Is that why you're late? I've heard that from my friends. Talk a little bit of shit, and it's funny, right? But then you have somebody else who's not part of the group, and then they say the same thing, and then everybody in the group is like, whoa, man, like, you don't know him like that. Like, don't say that. Like, what the fuck, right? And like having that trust, which is really what it is. That's what really drives that, is trust. It's the same thing where whenever it's the difference between whenever you see your friend and you're like, hey, what's up, man? How you doing? And then you see your best friend and you're like, hey, yo, what up, you stupid ass bitch? You want to go to McDonald's? And you've known him for 20 years. The difference between that is trust. And the reason why that's important inside of a community is because it not only creates a community that you yourself, the streamer, the content creator, are comfortable with, but it also creates the place where many of you guys who are viewers are also comfortable being part of it, because you're part of something. You're inside of it. You're inside the joke, and it's okay. Everybody's having fun. Everybody's laughing. And oftentimes whenever a stream grows very quickly and sees a large surge in popularity, it's extremely hard to create and cultivate and keep those inside jokes and the inside irony behind the jokes as pure as it originally was. And I think an example for this, for me personally, is whenever I was originally starting to do Dark Souls, and I did the same WoW memes where it was like I'd go up against the 2 guys in Sen's Fortress, and I would just fucking get my ass beat, and I'd be talking about how I'm the literal god and it was lag that killed me, right? And like all of my core viewers are seeing this and they're laughing, they think it's funny. Some of them probably think it's stupid, but many of them know, all of them, even if they think it's stupid, they know that I'm not taking it seriously. And then you have a number of people who are coming in and they're new viewers. They don't understand the context, nuance, and irony and all of the different layers of sarcasm that's going on in the stream, and they just see some dude that's not the literal god, he's literal dog shit at the game, and he's just getting his ass beat, and they don't really understand it. So it's like, instead of having one person come into that group of friends and say, take the meme literally, it's 20 people, and then the people that it's the inside joke to are the minority. And that's what happens whenever people aren't properly assimilated into the community, and the community grows too fast, and it starts to become something where the streamer, the content creator, becomes a stranger inside of their own community. And that's one of the worst things to have happen. I think that the best way to handle that is just to make sure that whenever that does happen, that you take a step back and you focus on building that core community, and you know that you have a lot of people that are watching you, and you make sure to focus on that and be conscious of that whenever you're creating your content, and try not to rely as much on inside jokes and irony and things like that. Now, the next thing that I want to talk about is how much a streamer individually is responsible for the content that they're creating and how much they're responsible for the actions of their viewers. Now, obviously, a streamer is not responsible for every single action of every single viewer, and every single action of every single viewer is not necessarily a like a way to tell of what the streamer wants. Like the streamer wanted them to do that, people have viewers that kill them. Okay, like they obviously didn't want that to happen. So you are going to have bad actors inside of communities no matter what you do, and that's just the truth. But for example, I've done a lot to get rid of racism in my community. I've gotten rid of a lot of the try hard emote, because it's like if you say, oh, try hard stole my bike, everybody knows what you're trying to say. Like, don't be intellectually dishonest. We all know what you're trying to say. And on top of that, or it's like, oh, I'm fighting these gorillas, and people start putting black faces in chat. Come on, bro. And so I realized that this was happening, and I tried to take an effort to prevent it from happening, because I thought that it was unhealthy for my stream. There are black people that watch my stream, and I'm sure that some of them are like, what the fuck, you know? I don't think they'd like that. And it's also not something that I think is productive or particularly funny either. It's like, okay, black people are gorillas. Ha ha ha. You know, like, it's not really, it's not high humor to me. And so anyway, the point that I'm drawing with this is that taking actions to remove things like that from my stream have not completely removed it from my stream. But there are streamers also who do things that do promote that. So as an example, right, it's like if you're a streamer and you're watching cops videos, and it's a bunch of videos of black people getting arrested, right? It's like one of those compilations, and it's a bunch of videos of black people getting arrested by cops, and your stream is just typing out different, dog whistling memes and shit like that, in the chat, and then suddenly you have an interaction with a black streamer, and then your community harasses them. Wow, what a surprise. So there are some times where it is the case and sometimes where it's not. And I think that being able to, instead of attacking the streamer themselves, attack the action that you believe is causing the negative thing to occur. So, attack watching those kinds of videos rather than, oh, well, this person's racist because they have a racist community. What does that really mean? It's just it's a meaningless accusation. And on top of that, I think that there's another idea in the community that because a streamer is toxic or has been toxic in the past, that's a rationalization for other people to be toxic to them, and it's just they get what they deserve, basically. And I think that for some people that's probably more or less true, but it's very rare and it's not as common as people make it out to be. I think that somebody reacting negatively to somebody else harassing them is not necessarily being toxic. So it's like if somebody's an asshole to me, I'll usually be an asshole back. Does that make me as toxic as they are? I don't really think so. I think it really the being the aggressor versus being aggressed on or attacked is a very big difference in my opinion. So I think that people saying that because it says toxic streamer and they have a toxic chat, I think that more or less that is something that is a rationalization of the community trying to absolve itself from the responsibility of trying to actually be better than themselves, and not necessarily a logical conclusion from what the streamer has actually done. Now, many times it's like you have anybody who's made content online for years, many people have had asshole moments, they've had gamer moments, but unless somebody's stream is just them sitting there shit talking people constantly, I don't necessarily think that the toxic streamer, toxic chat perspective is entirely valid. And I think it's also an extension of, because people get hate online, it's like if you make content online, you will get people that don't like it, and they will be very vocal about why exactly they don't like it. And basically, you're going to get hate if you put content online. I think people use that and then they personalize that and turn it into a rationalization inside of themselves, and they say, well, because you're going to get hate online, it's okay for me to harass you online because it's going to happen already. And I think that jump that people make is extremely unhealthy because it creates acceptable targets. And this is something that I've seen a lot recently on Twitter too, where if you see somebody who is, like let's say some guy makes an ass out of themselves for whatever reason, right? They're hogging up all the toilet paper or something similar, right? Then suddenly a Twitter mob goes on them and they just attack this person and their family and everything like that. Um, I in a way think that's even worse because not only are they being aggressive and attacking this person, but they're doing it with a self-righteous behavior or a self-righteous mindset to it. They don't even know that what they're doing is wrong. And not only do they not know that what they're doing is wrong, but they think that it's right. And I think that is extremely unhealthy. That is very, very bad. I don't like the idea of certain people being acceptable targets of bullying or harassment because of things that they've done. Now, obviously, there are exceptions. I mean, of course, there are exceptions. But as a general rule, I think that rationalization is extremely faulty. And it's just something that people use so they can absolve themselves from guilt for doing the exact thing that they claim that they're against. I don't like it at all, and I don't think that's something that's good for streaming communities or any online community at all. It's very, very unhealthy. Anyway, on top of that, I think that there's also a certain degree of the overarching community inside of the streamers community. So it's kind of like an ecosystem where the streamer is like one bubble, but there's like Twitch and like the global society that exists in outside of that bubble that the stream exists inside of. So for example, there are going to be general social norms that I don't follow, but many of my viewers do follow. It's not like most of my viewers only shower twice a week. It's not like most of my viewers only just play WoW all day. And, generally I'll have people that usually trend towards, birds of a feather flock together. But in many cases, there are plenty of things that are kind of negative that just exist on the website, period. I think Twitch has, they've done something recently, and this is like not recently, it's like last year or so, where they pretty much made the streamer responsible for their own chat. And I think this is kind of a good thing, but also at the same time it's not, because it implies that Twitch isn't complicit in knowing that these kinds of negative things occur and not actually taking global action against them, such as like racism and other types of negativity and harassment. And I think a good example of this is that if you watch like one of the soccer matches or any of the pay-per-view matches that get streamed on Twitch illegally, and you see the chat, almost always the chat is extremely toxic. Like it's terrible, like fucking awful, and like spamming racist stuff and just being general pieces of shit. And why is that? Well, it's certainly not because the streamer's being toxic, because there isn't really a streamer. They're just watching a soccer match or something like that. I think that really it's because there's a organic audience of people that are like that naturally on the website, and to a degree it's up to the streamers to get rid of them. And Twitch, I think, has kind of passed the ball of responsibility off to the streamers in an unfair way for something that the streamers in many ways did not actually create. And this is kind of a separate topic, but I do want to mention this because it does kind of go hand in hand with what I'm saying, as there are certain societal norms that people hold that the streamer isn't necessarily responsible for. And so making sure that you are an exemplar or you are a good role model for your community is absolutely super important. And I would totally agree with anybody that would say, like, yes, obviously your community will generally act the way that you act, but at the same time, there are many exceptions. I know for me, for example, this has happened I don't know, like maybe a couple weeks ago. So I looked at that website, egirl.gg, and I was going through all the different ones, and then a couple days later, a girl messaged me, and she said, "Hey, your viewers harass me." And I was like, what's really this? Like, I didn't really take it all that seriously. Like, I talked to her about it a little bit, but I didn't really take action on it. And then a little bit later, another girl messaged me, and she was like, "Yeah, this happened to me too. They were mean." And she was like, the little sad face, and I was like, "Well, fuck! Like, what the fuck is going on?" And so I get on my stream the next day, and I say to them, I'm like, "Listen, boys, the fuck do you think you're doing? You're making me look like an asshole." Because, like, now I don't want to go on the website because, if I do that, then somebody else is going to get harassed, and it makes everybody in the community look like pieces of shit, and it makes me look really bad. And so I said that. I told people, I was like, "Listen, if anybody ever does this again, and I find out who it was, I will permaban you in every chat that I am mod in, because it's something that really, really makes me look bad." And it makes me not want to do content like that because people like that can't handle it and they take it too far. And so I said all of that, and I looked at the website like maybe a week after that. I didn't get a single fucking complaint. And so it does work. Like, taking a stand against things does work. It doesn't always work, and it doesn't always reduce it to zero. There's never been a law in human history that's reduced the amount of crime that the law is supposed to prevent down to zero. It always just gets close to zero. And it's really about getting as close to zero as possible, not necessarily hitting the O. And that's the way that I feel about it. And I think that trying to make sure that you set a good example and you shut down negative things like that is super important. But a streamer should not ever be held responsible for the actions of individuals in their community unless you see a pattern of behavior, like what I was saying with like watching the compilations of like black people getting arrested and stuff, and then racism that kind of manifests itself out of that. So those are kind of some of the main things that I think streamers should try to avoid and try to focus on. And as a whole, I think that the way that you act on stream does influence your community. And so, for example, whenever I came back to streaming, I was like, you know what? If people are going to be negative, fuck them. They're going to be negative. That's all it's going to be. And I went from banning 50 to 100 people a day. I'm not even kidding. Like 50 to 100 people a day. And I went from doing that to like now, I ban maybe like 5 people a week. Like maybe 5 people a week. And everybody else, it's like if they say something I disagree with or I don't like, it's like, fuck them. It's not really a big deal. And I think taking that perspective is probably a lot more healthy. And I think that in the long run, it does build a healthier community, because having the people in chat organically just like kind of defend you in a way is a lot better in terms of creating a sense of belonging inside of the community itself. And it's something that I think is very, very bad once it starts happening if it's negative. So for example, like you have people, like you have streamers, I mean, everybody knows who they are, right? Like Wings of Redemption, the DSP, these types of streamers. And on YouTube, you have people like Boogie or, other people who it kind of creates this, it's like a ball of negativity. And what ends up happening is that the streamer might be in a bad mood or whatever, and then there are people that actively seek out streams of people that are in bad moods because they get some sense of satisfaction out of making people mad or, trolling people online. And then so you have the streamer who's getting pissed off, and then because they're getting pissed off, they're attracting more people that like seeing them get pissed off and like pissing them off, and then it making the streamer even more and more mad, and you get into this fucking death spiral where your entire community is just full of people that like seeing you get mad and want to see you upset and see you unhappy. And that is a terrible place to be in. That is a terrible place to be in. And how do you get out of that? There are a number of ways, and I'm not even going to go through all of them because I think it's just so personal I can't even say it myself. But for me, whenever I've had things like that happen, I think that, again, it's what I said before about growing too fast and memes, people thinking memes were real. Taking a step back and really focusing on your core community, focusing on the people that are your, friends, right? Parasocial friends. And making sure that those people are happy. And it's like what my mom has always told me before, is that the best revenge is living well. Now, whenever I was a kid, and even nowadays, somebody fucks me over, I want to fuck them back. But it's like with streaming, it's like, yeah, some viewer, like, what are you going to do? You're going to ban them? But there's nothing that's going to piss them off. And if you go online, you have a good stream, everybody's happy, and that's it. Because to them, you're getting away with it. You're getting away with whatever they feel like you did wrong. And there's not a damn thing they can do about it. And that's a good feeling. So I think that basically, if you're having like trouble like that, you're having trouble with toxicity, focus on your core community. Focus on the people that really care about your content, that like you, and try to have fun with them. Try to make it an enjoyable, fun experience. I go on stream, I enjoy streaming because I have fun and it enriches my life. That's why I like it. And it's just enjoyable. Like if I watch another person's stream, I want to watch their stream to, have interesting conversations, or to talk about something that's funny, or to just see funny stuff, and focus on being entertaining. Focusing on entertaining people, I think is such a better perspective than focusing on negativity or proving people on Reddit wrong. So those are my perspectives, and that's my opinion on how much a streamer can cultivate and create their own audience. Obviously, and the toxicity, etc. Obviously, it's a mixture of the two. Of course, it's the streamer's responsibility, but I think that in often cases, there are people that generally do have bad intentions, and they just go from person to person whenever they feel like somebody is vulnerable, and they can attack them and get the reaction that they want. And it's a sad thing to say, it is, but it's like chickens, right? Like one chicken starts bleeding and the other chickens peck it to death. What do? Don't bleed. That's my advice. It might not be the most empathetic advice, but it works. So, at the end of the day, that's what I think is important. I'd be curious to hear your opinions and other people's perspectives, especially if you're like another streamer or something like that, what you've done to kind of avoid this kind of stuff. And again, don't ever let people make you feel uncomfortable. Don't let other people ever tell you that you should be okay with something that you're not okay with. If there are people that are saying things that are bothering you, that's actually genuinely bothering you, never be afraid to time them out or say don't say that or whatever, or ban them. Never be afraid of that. But at the same time, try to take a measured approach. Try to treat things a little bit more lightly, and I think it'll help you out a lot. It's certainly helped me. Anyway, guys, that's pretty much all I've got. So I'd be, again, very curious to hear what people think about this. I've recorded this video probably 20 times, and hopefully this is actually the one that goes on YouTube. But anyway, guys, thank you very much for watching, and until next time, peace.